So you're going to go to your Start menu, and you're going to go to Documents. And the Documents is the D drive. The D drive is the Documents. I'm going to try something while we're doing this. All right, so your Documents right now is your D drive. The D drive is your Documents, okay? So we want to make a folder inside here for our work. So we're going to click on this New Folder button up at the top. And we're going to make a new folder with last name underscore first name underscore fall 13. Okay? That way we know whose folder it is, and we know which year it is and which semester. If you haven't gotten there yet, and you've tried to go back to your old semester's work after the fact, it's very difficult to find your work because you don't remember where you put it or what semester or what it was called. Well, we're going to try to alleviate that right away. Okay? I want you to be very OCD about where you put files. So inside of that Sarcona Sean Fall 13, you're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call this 2510. Okay, and that stands for MACA 2510, which is the class name. And if anyone gets stuck at any point, let me know. It's better to let me know when you're stuck than to wait until a year later. So we're going into this folder, and we're going to make two folders in here. One's going to be called Work, and one's going to be called Source. Your Work folder is all the work that you don't want to lose. Your Source folder is all the work you really don't care about. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that anything that I give you as far as a lecture should go into Source. Because if you lose it, who cares? You can always get it again. All right? If I give you a texture, who cares? You can get it again. Okay? So it goes into Source. Your Work folder is, here's the stuff that I'm working on. This is the stuff I absolutely don't want to lose. I need to make sure that if anything happens, I back up that folder. Pretend that our thumb drive is 2 gigabytes and we have 5 gigabytes of stuff to save. It's very easy to say, ignore this one because it's probably most of our stuff anyway, and just back up that work area. Okay? Now, one thing that may happen to several of you is that as you start backing up your stuff, that you start getting copies of these work and source folders all over the place. Try to avoid that, okay? Even if it's going into these folders and grabbing the exact files you need, do that as opposed to simply just copying this main folder. Here's what typically happens, I'll show you, is people go to their thumb drive and they say, okay, I'm going to copy my stuff over, so they copy their stuff in here. All right, let me just try this.
You can't do that
because it's on the same drive. So let me just move it to a different drive real quick. Just copy it to the C drive. All right, so I'm going to pretend it's on this one. So people will copy it to their drive, and now they have their Sarcona Sean Fall 13, and then there's another Sarcona Sean Fall 13.
Which one did I save it in?
Right. Which one did I save it in? Which one do I delete? Which one do I back up? Okay? Let's not do that, exactly. Let's be very particular about where we're saving our stuff.
I remember one time I made this mistake, never do it again.
Yes. And that's what it takes sometimes, is just make the mistake, and then we won't do it again, hopefully.
So is work important or is source important? What was it?
Work is the important one. Right. I'm recording this lecture. You can have the lecture after this. If you want to save it into your source. If I give you textures, save it into source. Okay?
Supplements for our work.
Right. Imagine if you've had InDesign or Illustrator or whatever. In InDesign or Illustrator or whatever, you'd want to save those files into your work. But all the reference you got, all the resources you grabbed, throw it into source. Okay? As long as it's not linked. Right. All right. So we understand that. Good. All right. So now we're going to go back to the D drive. So just click on the D drive. And one cool thing that I really love about Maya is its ability to edit our preferences, save our preferences, back up our preferences. On a Mac, it's not so easy. So on a Mac, you actually have to dig around to find where this folder's at. But on the D drive, some of you may see this Maya folder. Okay? If you don't see it, it's not a big deal. But if you do see it, we're going to go into it. Okay? In this Maya folder, there are a couple folders inside here. One of them is the 2013 X4. You can look at mine if you don't have all of these folders. You probably don't. Another one is the 2014 X64. There's a modules, a projects, and a scripts, and some other stuff. Okay? Don't worry about if you have all of these or you don't have all of these. This folder is something where I could just delete this Maya folder, and then when Maya reboots, it'll automatically recreate it. These are just the preferences for now. Right here are just the preferences. There's a projects folder where Maya will create a default project. So let's pretend that you accidentally saved your work into the default preferences or the default project. Someone went through and deletes it. Well, now your project's gone. Okay? So we're not going to save anything into this projects folder, but that's what it's intended for, is that's your default project location. These 2013 and 2014 folders are the preferences for Maya 2013 and Maya 2014. It's kind of like Photoshop CS4, Photoshop CS5, okay? So inside these folders, we can go through and actually edit stuff. And I'm just going to show you how, as far as like a nerdy way, how cool Maya can be. If I go in here and I right-click on my window prefs and I go to edit this with Notepad, here is the window locations, the screen locations of those windows that are showing. Okay? That may not mean anything to you right now, but imagine at home that you have two screens and you threw all your palettes on this window. Then you come into class and there's only one screen and none of your palettes are showing up. It's because it's remembering the palette location over here. So we have to go through and edit some stuff. Now that we have two monitors, it's not typically an issue anymore. Yes, ma'am.
Could you sync my other screen?
Let me. Okay, so in that Maya folder on the D drive, if you have a 2014 folder, delete it. Okay, if you don't have a 2014, don't worry about it. Okay, because it's already gone. If you want to delete something, you can delete the 2013 if it's there, or just make a file and then delete that if you really don't want to be left out. Okay, everyone's good so far? All right. So now that the 2014 folder is deleted, when we boot Maya up, we get a fresh set of preferences. That's what we want. So go to your Start menu. Maya 2014 isn't going to be listed in there, so you have to type in Maya 2014 with a space. With a space, yes. And then it should have a blue icon. So the second that the blue icon one shows up, that's the one you want to click.
License transfer?
Not that one. That one doesn't have a blue icon.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This one here. Okay? So just click on that.
Okay.
Maya's going to open. If you did have a 2013, 2012, 2011 folder inside your Maya folder, it'll ask you, do you want to copy your preferences from a previous version? Okay, like it's doing on mine. I don't want that, so I'm going to say create default preferences.
Create default.
Yes. Hopefully, this is the only time we have to really worry about doing this. Because once we're doing this, we can just set up our preferences and then be done with it.
We give you a message that says envelopes copied from whatever to whatever.
Yes, that's just the environment one.
Just close it.
No, you can leave that open.
Okay.
Okay, when you open Maya, you get, another screen's going to pop up in a second, but you get this output window. Maya is very heavily into scripting, and everything is basically a script. So when I create a sphere, what's happening is I click Create Sphere, it goes into this directory that has just a whole bunch of scripts, a whole bunch of little mini programs. One of them is called Sphere. It runs that program, and then it gets out of there. Okay? So this output window, you can never actually close the output window and keep it closed forever, because it'll always pop back up. So if you click down here in your taskbar for the output window, and then just minimize, that's what this guy is for, minimize it.
It'll be off screen.
If you don't have an output window, not a big deal, but I think everyone does. Okay, and if you don't minimize it, it's not going to be a big deal because it's not going to get in your way right now. Okay, So a couple things pop up. You may not have all the ones that I do. I have this one pops up, which is join the customer involvement program. I don't want to, so I'm just going to hit no. Hit OK. All right. First new window. This is a Maya 2014 thing. There have been some major changes from 2013 to 2014. So inside here is, do you want to highlight what's new and show this menu at the startup? I'm going to leave highlight what's new on, and I'm going to turn off show this at startup. Okay. For you guys, you really don't care about that, so just click show this at startup off and hit OK. The other one that pops up is these 1-minute startup movies. Basically, if you're new to Maya and you want to figure out how do I create objects, how do I zoom, pan, or roll, which is how you move around, how do I move, rotate, or scale objects, or do any of these other things, you can click on one of these movies to watch it. For now, we're just going to click X to turn it off. Okay. And then because I'm a little bit OCD on this, I want to use my screen capacity, so I'm going to click the maximize button right here. That way I use my entire screen. Okay, so now this is the Maya interface. We're going to set up our preferences first, and then we'll actually get in here and start playing around a little bit. Okay. So what we want to do is I'm going to first come up to this create box up here. I'm going to go to where it says NURBS primitives right at the top. And then I'm going to go down to where it says interactive creation, and I'm just going to click that off. Okay, I'm going to go to create polygon primitives now, the one right below it, and turn interactive creation off for that as well. Just so you can see what those two are doing, this is what it would want me to do. When I create a sphere or a cube or whatever, it wants me to click on it and then click and drag to create that sphere of whatever size. For me, that's annoying. So I like to turn it off, and because I want you to be exactly like me, I make you turn it off. So NURBS primitives, interactive creation's off. Poly primitives, interactive creation's off. Not a big deal. All right. So now we're going to go down here. There's a little key on the bottom right. See this little tiny key right here? Right next to the key, I forget that you have your screen. Right next to the key is the preferences. So I'm going to click on the preferences. Right down here is preferences. Next to the key. And these are your basic set of preferences for Maya. Maya's preferences can be customized more than any other program I've ever seen before. Okay, everything can be customized inside Maya. I can make brand new menu bars on top of what I want. Okay, so what we're going to do is start at the very top of this where it says interface. Okay, so you click on interface, and what you see up there is a bunch of just, some of these aren't going to make sense right away, but a bunch of different options. Okay, here's the one that we had right at the beginning, highlight what's new in this release. So at any point, if we wanted to, we could uncheck that, and then we wouldn't get these little green areas like this thing. Okay, so I can uncheck that or check it, whatever. I want you to disable mouse scroll wheel. Okay, I'll show you what that is when we get to it. Yes, just uncheck the enable box.
That little thing in the middle of the mouse is now no longer used.
Correct. It's not used as a zooming mechanism. Okay. Right. It's just well, it'll be something else, but it's not a zooming mechanism. All right. So now we're going to go down to View Cube on the left side, and the View Cube is this guy over here on the top right. Okay. So I don't like this thing either, so I'm going to turn that off. Just click on View Cube and then click up here. Yep. So now the View Cube is gone. So then we're going to go down to Settings on the left. And in here we have our time set to film 24 frames per second. That's what we want to keep it set at. Sometimes you might be working on a project and you want it to be set to 15 or 30 or 60. Okay? So if you're working on a specific project and they give you a specific, we need this set to 30 frames per second, make sure you set this to 30 frames per second. Okay? Because if you were to animate something at 60 frames per second, it would look pretty good. And then if you took it down to 24, well, now it's going to go super slow-mo because you're showing 24 frames in 1 second instead of 60 frames in 1 second.
It's gonna slow it down.
Right. And then the same thing will be if you're at 24, then you go to 30 or 60, then it's going to speed it up. All right, so that's that. Down to time slider on the left. And in here, there's a playback speed that says play every frame. We want to keep that as play every frame. But the one below it that says max playback speed, we're going to set that to real time. So what this is going to do is when we hit the play button, Maya will try to go as fast as it can by the default settings. So if it could play 1,000 frames in a second, it's going to play 1,000 frames in a second. And our animation, if we set it up, might look good at 1,000 frames a second. But the second we render it out and we're working at 24 frames a second, well, now we're going to realize, whoa, that's not going the same exact speed that I thought it would. Okay? So we're telling it, don't go any faster than 24 frames in a second.
Because that's how fast we're gonna make it go in the end.
Right. Okay. Now it may play back at 10, it may play back at 2, it may play back at 1 frame a second, but at least that'll be a little bit more obvious to us. Okay. So time slider, real time, 24. The next one is undo. This is an important one for beginners because this is how many undos you have in the program. How many have used Photoshop before? How many undos do you have in Photoshop?
20, I think.
You have one.
Oh yeah.
You have one literal undo in Photoshop. The rest, you're going through the history palette to undo stuff, and that's only about 20 or so long, right? So you don't have that many undos. Maya, you can set this number to be infinite. You can have an infinite number of undos. You can model something from here until 8 o'clock at night, and then just hit undo and go all the way back to the beginning. Something will probably crash or die by then, but you could, okay? It's dangerous to do infinite because everything in Maya is undoable. If I click off and then I click back on something, that's 2 undos, okay? So I would say don't go any higher than 200, but as a beginner, you may want to set it to 200, and then as you get more comfortable with it, maybe lowering it down. For me, if I have it at 50, that's a good number. If I need to go back more than 50, it's typically quicker for me just to delete something and re-render it, right, or remodel it. So I would say at most set that thing to 200. Sometimes, for whatever reason, the undo button stops working. It comes off. This button here somehow gets turned off. I don't even know why they have an off button for undos, but they do. So sometimes you actually have to come back into the preferences and turn it on. Okay? But this is where you would set that up. That's all the stuff we're going to set right now. There's a whole bunch of other things inside here, things that are really super duper awesome. So we're just going to leave it as is and say save. There we go. So those are our basic preferences, okay? Kind of like across the board preferences. Now we're going to set up some stuff that's very specific to what we're going to be doing. We're going to go over the entire interface, but I'm going to show one thing right now, which is this. This right here is called a shelf. This guy that goes across the top of the screen. A shelf is, here are the tools that I use a lot. I want to keep those tools handy. Pretend that you're in Photoshop and every 2 seconds you're going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Every 2 seconds, okay? You want to have a button where you can just click on Gaussian blur and have that available to you.
So you don't have to click 5 times to get to it.
Exactly, okay? So that's what these things are. That's just hot buttons to get there. This one here where we have a sphere, that's the same thing as me going to create polygon sphere, okay? Same exact thing. So we're going to go to the custom one. That's on the far right. And we're going to add our own shelf items, okay? And it's simple to do. You're going to overcomplicate it, and you're going to end up with 300 shelf items if you don't just do exactly what I say. So you're going to hold down the control key and the shift key on the keyboard. Do not let these go. Keep the control and the shift key down. With your mouse, go up to Edit, go down to Delete by Type, and then go over to History. And then just click on it. Okay? Nothing happened that you could see, right?
Yeah.
So let go of Control-Shift, click your mouse into the viewport, and now on your shelf you should have
History button.
a history button, okay? You have 2. If you have more than one, we middle mouse button drag over to the trash can. Okay, so the middle mouse button, if you have any extra ones, over to the trash can, and it'll go bye-bye. Click on the custom one. Yeah, there you go. And then re-edit. All right, so that's our first button. We don't know what this button does yet. We'll get to what this button does. But this is one of those buttons where I click every 3 minutes. Okay, so Control-Shift again, up to Modify Now, and up to Center Pivot. Same thing, just click, let go, and then you can click off into your viewport and see that it's there. Okay, so now we have Edit, Delete by Type History, and then we have Modify, Center Pivot. Everyone's happy so far?
Yes.
Success. Control-Shift again. Now we're not going to let go of Control-Shift, we're just going to add a couple more. So we're going to go to Window, Outliner, and you can see the magic happen because there's room. Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. Good? Okay. That should be it for now. Okay, so well, actually we'll do one more. We'll do Animation Editors, Graph Editor. So Control-Shift, Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. Cool. Now one of the cool things too with Maya, like I said, you can customize anything. I can make my own menu bar just like this. Okay, instead of me putting them in a shelf, I can create very easily one of these things. Okay, and then just have all my hot things right there. I could also click on, see how there's like a little like dotted line? I can click on the dotted line and there's a window. So I can just pull off that window and keep it off to the side. That's why second monitors are great, because typically people will throw all their palettes and stuff on this monitor and work on the other monitor. Some people will actually work like this with everything gone. Okay, that way your workspace is a bit bigger. All right, so there's our custom shelf. So we have the Delete History, Center Pivot, Outliner, Hypershade, and Graph Editor. We'll go into what those are today. Let's create our project. So we're going to go up to File, Project window. Right away, because there are so many different things going into Maya, it wants to keep itself organized. How many have had After Effects experience? There was a couple, right? All right. Illustrator, InDesign, you've used those before. Those programs link files together, right? So you have your main file, and then you have pictures and graphics and whatever else that's linked in there. So imagine we're working on a magazine ad, okay? If we're working on a magazine, we may have pictures for one column, pictures for another column, pictures for an advertisement, pictures for whatever, text, okay? We don't want to throw everything into one folder. We want to keep it organized by kind of like topic or page or however you're organizing it. Right. We want to organize them. If you have a web page, you might have videos in one folder, audio in one folder, images in another folder, whatever. So Maya is the same kind of thing. Here's all the folders that it wants to create for us. A scenes folder, write this down. That's where all of your projects are going to be saved to. That's where your actual Maya file is saved to, is your scenes folder. Okay? So if you can't find something, check the scenes folder. If you can't, don't know where to save it into the scenes folder. Okay? That's where things are going to be going. I'm not going to go through all of these because realistically all of these aren't used. This is a basic setup. Okay? These source images are all images that we bring into Maya. So if I have a model of this book, and I want to bring in a picture of the cover of this book, I would take a picture of the book or get the artwork from the art department, and I would drop that image inside of my source images folder. Okay? And Maya will know when I go to say, I want to apply this texture to that image to go into the source image folder and grab it. Okay? The other one is images. When we take stuff out and we do that final stage of rendering, that's where all those files are going to go. Okay? So if we don't keep this organized, Maya freaks out and it saves stuff into random places. Okay? So right away, keep your sanity. Make sure this stuff is staying organized. Okay? Make sure that when you save files, they go into scenes. When you bring in your own textures, they go into source images. when you output stuff, make sure it goes into images. Okay? Maya knows that's where it wants to go. It's you that does the bad thing of not putting it in the right spot. All right, so we're going to go and make a new project. So up here on the top right, it says new. So we're going to click on new. And we're going to call this playing around underscore your last name. Everything you do in here should be labeled with your last name somewhere in there. Okay? You're dealing with hundreds of files, maybe 1,000 files by the time we're done with this class. If you're missing one of those files, it could cause a debacle for the whole thing. Okay? So make sure you're saving these things in the right spot. So the name of our project is going to be playing around underscore Sarcona. The location of it is not D drive Maya projects. Okay? We set up that a few minutes ago. So we're going to click the folder for location. And it's going to think. There it goes. And then we're going to go to the D drive. We're going to go to our folder with our name on it. We're going to go to 2510 and work, and that's it. So now we're going to say select. Okay. So I'm going to hit cancel. Stay exactly where you are if you followed along. I'm going to go cancel. I'm going to show that again just so you can see it. I go to File Project window. I click New. I give it a name. Oops. Playing around Sarcona. I click on Location. I click the folder. I go to the D drive. I go to my name. I go to 2510. I go to Work, and that's it. Okay? So my project is set to whatever name. Again, I don't use spaces because we don't like spaces. Always underscores. My location, D, Sarcona, Fall 13, 2510, Work. Good. These things are already there. I hit Accept. Okay? Now stay where you're at. Don't move around. But you can look on mine. And if I go to my D drive, I go to my folder. I go to 2510. I go to Work. Voila, there is that folder that we just created. And if I go inside it, there are all the folders that it created for us. Maya is one of the few programs that right off the bat knows we need to keep this stuff organized. Okay?
It's trying to help you out.
It's trying to help you out, exactly. And it knows what it needs.
It's easier for the computer to find this stuff.
And easier for you as long as you remember where the stuff is supposed to go.
What I'm saying is if there's like brand name folders on the same on everybody's,
Oh, right,
it's
right.
always going to know where to go.
Right. And especially if, let's pretend that we're dealing with a web page. How many people have had web before? A couple people have had web, okay?
Yeah.
If you're dealing with web and you take your web page folder and you move it to a different computer, it could just stop working and everything just goes bananas, okay? And then you have to go through lines of code and fix all that stuff. In here, it's similar but not the same exact thing. Yes, sir? So in a web page, things go bananas. In Maya, we can say, okay, here's where we're working, here's our project folder, and then it'll automatically go through and find our stuff for us, okay? Because it knows you brought images in, they're in source images. You're taking images out, they're going to go into images. You're opening a file, it's going to go into scenes. The trouble here lies when people have, I'm going to go to my other folder, when they have something in their source folder, like a picture of a cat, and they want to put that picture of a cat into their scene. You have to copy it from your source into the source images folder, okay? Because
If you have something you want it in multiple places, you got to copy it to multiple places.
correct, okay? Just to keep yourself organized. Source is simply reference, keep it as a reference, and then just copy stuff in as you need. You could literally go and download millions of textures, but you don't need millions of textures for every project. Okay, so we keep those million textures inside source, and then as we need them, we copy them into source images. Okay? And I'm going to try to repeat that a bunch of times just so you guys remember
When
that.
we bring stuff in, it's going to be source images until we use it in the actual scene, and then if we want it in the scene, we got to copy it from source images to scene.
No, no, no. Scene is just your Maya file.
Right, okay.
Okay? That's the only thing that's going to go in here. Source images is that picture of a cat or a
Right,
dog
right.
or wood.
So, what I'm saying, like, if we want that picture of the cat, go on it in our background.
Mhm.
So,
You're going to copy it from source. You have, it may be confusing because we have the same name or a similar name, but source in our 2510 folder. Okay, that folder is already saved it.
I'm looking at
and
source
copied.
images. So
Right, that's where we eventually want to put it. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's that. Good.
What is your resources folder, like when you take stuff off the server?
Right.
Right. I got that. I understood that. I just the source.
Okay, so now we're good in here. I'm going to close Maya down. So we're going to go to File, Exit. And then don't save if it asks us to save. Okay, so now we really didn't do much, but we did. We've set up our preferences. Okay, that's going to be our first step in making sure that every day that we come in, that everything is going to be happy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Start menu. I'm going to go back to Documents. And I'm going to go into my Maya folder. And now everyone should have a 2014 folder in there. Okay. So now we're going to go back to the Start menu again and open up a new window. You can go back to Documents, it doesn't matter. And I'm just doing a side-by-side. And my other window is going to be my folder, my Sarcona folder. Okay, so now we have two windows open. One of them is our Maya folder on the whatever side, left side. The other one is our named folder on the right. What we need to do is we need to back up our preferences. Tomorrow or Monday when you come in, your preferences are going to be different. Okay? The class after you is going to delete your folder and create their own preferences because they have different settings than you do. Okay? They're working at 30 frames per second. They have different stuff in their shelf that they're going to need. Okay? So they're going to delete them. So when you come in on Monday, we need to make sure we have a copy of your preferences that we can just drop in there. So I'm going to go back to this Maya folder, and I'm just going to hold the Control key, which is a copier. Okay? And I'm just going to drag the 2014 folder into my folder. Okay? You could also Control C and Control V, Control Copy, Control Paste. All right, everyone is good? Cool. All right, so now that we've set up our folders, we've created our project, we've backed up our preferences. Now we can go into Maya and start to play around a little bit. But every day you come in, we're going to walk through it the first couple weeks, but you're going to delete the old preference folder that's in here, and we're going to copy, not move, but copy our preferences back in here. That way, every day you come in, those are your preferences.
So we just open it up and just drag it in there.
Control drag it. If you just drag it, if I were to delete this, and I just drag this in, it goes away. Okay? So I need to make sure that I copy it into there and not delete it. Okay? So we can close these windows just so we don't get confused. And then again, go to the Start menu, type in Maya 2014, and open it up. If you're working on a Mac, this is where your preferences are going to be saved at. Okay? It's a little bit further than just D drive Maya projects. It's under your username, Library Preferences, Autodesk Maya 2013, and there's your prefs. Okay? So when in doubt, Google it, because you don't need to remember that. It's always going to be there. The other thing I'm going to show real quick is over the weekend, I want you guys to go to Macomb's website. I want you to click on the Angel login. I want you to register with Angel if you've never done Angel before.
I've already been registered.
Okay, then you're going to go into the class and just browse around, make sure you know where all our stuff is. So if you've never used Angel before, it's going to be your WebAdvisor username. So mine is Sarcona S, so I'm going to use Sarcona S. If you've never used it, your password is going to be your 6-digit birthday, which is that. And if you still have trouble or you forgot your password, you've been around the internet long enough where you know how to do the I forgot my password and do the other stuff you have to do. In the 2510 folder, if you've never done Angel, you won't see anything here. It'll just say orientation, Angel orientation.
Yeah, you gotta do the orientation, then it'll let you look at stuff.
Right, you do the orientation, it's like a half hour long or so, you take a little test, you pass the test, and then you can get your class. I think it takes a half hour after you've passed to actually see your class in there. So you click on the class, which is 2510, and eventually I'll have more stuff in here. Right now we don't have a lot, but there's the syllabus if you need it. Here are some links to some random things. This is the important one, the Maya 3-year link.
Yay!
Okay, so you can download Maya for free for 3 years. So this weekend, I would recommend you do that. The more time you spend in Maya, the easier this class is going to be. Okay, even like stupid stuff like going in there and just screwing around for an hour and a half while you're watching TV or while mom and dad are yelling at you.
How much space does it take up? I mean, like how big?
A gig.
It's only, all right.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Am I registered for this class?
That doesn't matter.
But it's not showing up on my.
Oh, it won't show up on yours. That's right. It won't show up on yours, so I'll just have to get you the link. I'll email it to you. I did. That's right. Yeah.
How much does it cost?
It costs $7,000 for a business license. Yes. That is relatively cheap compared to some of the other software. Have you seen Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, any of the ones where they have massive crowds of people that are attacking and fighting? The software for that costs $25,000
So what software
for that.
are you using?
It's called Massive. It's the whole purpose of that software is just crowd generation. Okay, stuff like that.
Well, Avid's expensive too.
What is?
Avid.
Avid?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. There's one program it used to be, I don't know, like $500,000 or something like that, because it was just so high-end, it did so much fancy stuff. And then Nuke came along, and Nuke is kind of like the bridge between After Effects, which is, in my opinion, kind of low rent, and then this was the high rent. Nuke it's at like $6,000, but it does a whole lot of stuff, and a lot of people use Nuke. But you can register for this. You'll get 3 years of Maya. You can also download Mudbox. You can download Softimage. You can download loads of stuff. There's also Maya shortcuts here, which hopefully, the bad thing about linking stuff is that you never know if this still works. Page not found, so they've gotten rid of that link, so I'll have to fix that. There's an Omen workshop. There's tutorials. There's Dropbox. Sometimes if something happens and you definitely need to send me something to look at, you can get in a Dropbox account, upload your stuff to Dropbox, share the link with me, and then I can download your files, look at them, diagnose it, then send you back something. Okay? Sometimes you need to do that. All right. There's also lessons in here. I'll go over this more once we get to needing to do that. All right. So, but this weekend, make sure you go through Angel and at least get yourself on there. And if you have a computer that can run Maya, try running it. Otherwise, come into labs. We're going to have lab hours posted. Anytime Monday or Wednesday before this class, this room is open. Okay, so you can come in here and use it. All right, so let's go over Maya. This is Maya hotkeys that I passed out. These are some of the things that you're going to be using. We're going to have a test on this, so get comfortable with these things. We're going to do the test. I'm going to let you guys pick by a show of hands. Do you want to do it the Wednesday before Labor Day or the Wednesday after Labor Day? After, raise your hand. After, okay.
More time to cram it in.
More time to cram it in, but then you have the holiday, and then, all right. So we'll do it after.
Holiday to study, right?
So the Wednesday after, we're going to do this. And it's going to be a blank sheet, and I'm going to have, not a blank sheet, but I'm going to have the names, and then you'll just type in the stuff. By then, by about 3 weeks into the class-ish, you should be pretty comfortable with using a lot of these, okay? So the first thing, let's go over the interface. The top bar here is the same thing you've seen probably in every other program, which is the menu bar. It's going to hold all your basic menus, okay? So here's File, where we could go to New and Open and Save. Here's Edit, where we could do some stuff and modify and so on and so forth. Where Maya is different is that that's one menu bar. If we go down to this area where it says Polygons, and I click on this and I choose Animation, now I have an animation menu bar that's replaced it. If I click on Animation and I go to Surfaces, that one gets replaced as well. If I go to Surfaces and go to Rendering, that one gets replaced as well. Okay? So very quickly, I've kind of changed how my interface is working. Depending on one of those branches that we talked about at the beginning of modeler, lighter, texture, animator, renderer,
Like
which area you're working in, you may want to change that menu. Okay.
You have the keys that are probably more.
That are more adept to it. Now, here's what's really going to probably throw you into a fit, is if we hold down the space bar, this is the hotbox, which is every menu item.
Hold on space.
You just hold down the space bar inside your view, and then you'll see all of the menus that I just showed, okay, plus some extra ones. Okay, if you go down here in the bottom and you hold down space, it'll cut it off. Or if you're off screen, it'll do that. And then all of the stuff that I'm showing, like I said, you can customize that. So that hotbox, which is what that spacebar thing is called, I can customize the hotbox to look however I want. I can customize any of these to look however I want. I can go down here to where it says customize and create my own menu that houses all those things. Sometimes when we're modeling, there's a surface modeling and a polygon modeling. Sometimes you want to do both. So I may have a menu that's just those things. I may have a texturing menu. I may have a whatever menu, okay? So you can customize those, but realistically in this class, you're probably not going to be wanting to do that. All right, so menu bar up here, item or a menu bar picker up right there. These three guys are just new, open, and save. Eventually, you'll get comfortable with using those. My opinion in everything that you do as far as software goes, the quicker you can do something, the more efficiently you can do it, the better, okay? So it might take you a minute to remember, oh, that's the new scene, or that's the save scene, or that's the open scene. But do these instead of having to go here and there, or here and there, or whatever, okay? Some of these are collapsed. If you look at mine on here, you see there's like a line with a little arrow. That means it's collapsed, and I can click on it and open it up, okay? Or click on it to close it. Depending on your screen real estate, you may want to have more or less things showing, okay? This is just what we're picking on right now. We'll get into what that means later. This one, we'll get into what that means. We'll get into what these mean. We'll get into what that means, okay? These are just some more menu options that are up here. This area below it, we already talked about. That's the shelf, okay? And like we talked about, we can have different shelves for different operations. Like I said, instead of having my own customized menu of polygons and surfaces, I could just keep my polygon menu here, my surfaces shelf there, and still work with them hand in hand. I would avoid at all costs using any of these buttons except for the ones you're creating, okay? Because you don't know what they're going to do. It's quick. Yes, I can go here and create a sphere. You don't need to do this. I'm just showing you. There we go. And then click duck hair. And then I'll have duck hair on here. It's very quick to do that. But I need to be able to edit it. I need to be able to play with it and do some fancy stuff. Okay? So we don't do that. So use your own custom shelves and then go from there. All right? This main window here is our viewport. If we're in Photoshop or Illustrator, this is our document. This is what we're working on, okay? But this is simply what we're working on in the perspective view, okay? Like we talked about with this box, if we wanted to do a top view, a front view, a side view of this thing, we want to see those things. So instead of holding the spacebar in this window, if we simply tap the spacebar, you'll see that we go to what they refer to in CAD as orthographic panels. This is my top view, this is my front view, this is my side view, and this is my perspective view.
What'd you hit with space? I'm sorry.
Just tap the space. Okay? And it brings you right into that. Now if I hold my mouse over any one of these views and tap the space bar again, you'll see that it pops me into that view. So where we would use this is, let's say we're doing a car and we need to make sure that that car is perfectly smooth on the back. It comes up, it goes over, it comes back down, whatever. We would jump into the side view to make sure we get that line perfect, okay? In perspective view, it's hard to get that kind of accuracy. In the top view, we can do it too. In the front view, we can do it too. There is no distortion in this view, Okay, so if we had, I'll show you this, stay where you're at. If I have a cube, actually I'll do a cylinder. If I can find it, there it is. Okay, I make a big cylinder. I can rotate it. You can see how I scale this thing down, and in my perspective view, it looks like it's getting smaller, right? It looks like it's big at the front and smaller. In my top view, it's exactly a cylinder. In my front view, it's a cylinder. In my side view, it's a cylinder.
It's because
Perspective is distorting it. Your perspective view, your top view, your right view, your front view, these are all actual cameras, okay? So when I say go to your perspective view or adjust your perspective camera or whatever, we're actually moving cameras around. And this camera in the perspective view is more like a realistic camera that has perspective to it. It has some distortion to it, okay? These ones that are here in the front, top, and side are totally flattening the object out, okay? It's getting rid of all perspective. All right, so tap back so you get back to the perspective view. All right, so now on the left side here, we have our moves, rotates, and scales we'll get to. Here are different layouts that we can set up too. So right now we're set up with one perspective camera, and if we tap the space bar, we get the 4 views. But I could also set this up to be a perspective view and what's called the outliner. Okay, if you remember, we added a button called outliner to our shelf. Okay, the outliner is listing every single thing that's in your scene. Okay, so if we had Woody, Buzz, a bunch of background toys, and whatever else, each one of those pieces would be listed right inside the outliner. Okay, it's not layering, it's simply a listing of all the stuff that we have inside here. If we had a robot with 5,000 pieces, every single one of those 5,000 pieces would be listed inside here.
Then if you click on it, we give you like all the...
Right, if I clicked on, let's say I organized it correctly, if I clicked on the shoulder, it should select all the other stuff, as long as I've organized it correctly, okay? And eventually we'll get into more organizing stuff. But this is basically if I were to create a sphere, there's the sphere showing up right there, okay? So I could select it in here, I could select it in here, I can delete it in either spot. All right, so that's the outliner. There's also, if I click on the next one down, this is perspective view and the graph editor. So when we're doing animation stuff, it's typically good to see the animation and be able to tweak it at the same time. So that's what this is going to allow us to do. So if you had some of the advanced After Effects stuff, if you've gotten to that in the class when you took it, sometimes you go into the graph editor and start to tweak where the points are, where the keyframes are. So that's what that's for. The next one down is the node editor, the hypershade, and the perspective. This is more advanced stuff, but this is some of the texturing things that are up here. And then this is a node graph where we can do connections and whatever else. Now it's also cutting off some of my other panel layouts, all right? But they're there. And I could actually customize my own. I could make whatever I wanted of any of these. You'll notice that in each one of these windows that I have set up, there's a button that says Panels. And if I go to that panel button, I can go from here and choose whether I want this to be a perspective view. If I go down to orthographic, I can choose a front, side, or top. If I go to Panels, I can choose any one of these things to show up in there. Or I can go to the hypergraph panels and add this thing. Or I can go to Layouts and change different layouts, like 3 panels side split. Okay, so there's a lot of options for customization in here. A lot of different things we can do. Typically, we'll try to stay everything within the perspective view, but then use pop-up windows, like if I were just to click the outliner, that's just a pop-up window that I can move off to my other screen. Okay, so I try to use pop-ups more than I use stuff inside, just because I have the other screen here. All right, but just be aware that they are there, and if something goes bananas and you can't get back to your perspective view, just click the perspective view here, or click the 4 panel and then tap the space bar to get back to perspective view. All right, so that's our views over here. This down here is our time slider. Okay, we don't have anything animated, but that's our time slider. Down here on the very bottom where it says Mel, this is where we could do scripting. Okay? So if you click inside there and you type in lowercase sphere, and then you hit enter on your numerical keypad, you'll see that a sphere gets created. And like I said, that sphere getting created is just going out and running a script. And it's running the sphere script. So when I type in sphere, it knows go out, run the sphere script. Now what I can do down here that's kind of cool also is I could type in stuff like sphere -R10. And now it's going to give me a bigger sphere. Okay, so I can add options down here for what I want to happen. Okay, so if I want the radius to be 10, I could type in sphere -R10 and then it works. Okay, there's a certain syntax to it. There's also, if I were to click on the word mel, it changes to the word Python. Python is another scripting language. If you wanted to get really heavy into 3D and you wanted to kind of get yourself to be better than a lot of other people, learning Python is one of those ways you could do that. Because Python is one of those programming languages that is across many, many different applications in 3D and compositing.
Intro game development.
Intro to game development is a course we teach at the college, and they do Python. So that's where we could type stuff in. All right, so that's our line down here. This over here is your error line or your message line. So when we create a sphere or we create an object or create whatever, you'll see that it says result polysphere 1. Okay, meaning that it's just giving us some feedback that something did happen. All right, if something bad happened, we would get it in red, and then alarms would be going off that we did something wrong. Okay. You'll notice that I did delete this and it didn't show deleting done. Sometimes it shows stuff, sometimes it doesn't, depending on what our operation is. Down here on the very bottom, this is going to be your biggest helper. This is the help line. So when we go into some of our tools, it'll tell us this is what you need to click on in order for this thing to work. So if I go to polygon sphere, and I'm going to go to one of the tools here. I'm going to go to that one, interactive split tool. There we go. So now it says on the bottom, use left mouse or middle mouse to tumble, shift to constrain rotation. Okay, because I'm in the tumble tool, but I'm not really in the tumble tool. I don't know why it says that. Okay, somehow it's locked on that. It should be showing me the correct thing, but it's not. Let's try it again. Come on. Nope. All right, apparently in 2014 it's broke. Let's try a different tool, cut faces. There we go. So now it says polygon cut faces. Control drag to cut the polygon faces. So I can control drag and cut the faces like that. Okay, so it gives you little helps as to what I need to do, what I need to click on to get the desired result. Over here on the right is our channel box / layer editor. This top area is the channel box. The bottom area is the layer editor. Okay, in the channel box area is like if I created a sphere. It's listing the translates, the rotates, and the scales and visibility for this object. So as I scale it, as you can see, the scale values are right here. As I move it or rotate it, it's updating those values. So if I had something that I did need to have some precision to it, I needed a 5-unit sphere, I needed it rotated 45 degrees and raised up 10 units, I could have that in there. Okay. Sometimes we need to have stuff a little bit more accurate than other times, and sometimes we don't. Okay. Down here is our layers. The layers do not work like they do in Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign or any of those other programs. The layers work simply as a way to help us organize things. Okay. So if I have 500 layers, the one on top is not more visible than the one on the bottom. Okay. It's simply a way for me to kind of hide those things. If I have an entire city and I'm only working on this small building, I can hide the entire city and work on just that small building. Okay? So that's what the layers are used for. You'll see there's display, render, and animation layers. Most of the time we're going to stick to display layers. We may get into some render layers. Okay, that's that. You'll notice that with this panel menu here, there's also some buttons down here. We'll get into what those mean as well. Okay. All right. So now let's actually get in here and start playing around. So we're going to create an object. So we're just going to go up to Create. We're going to create a polygon object, and we're going to create a cube. So we just click on Cube. You may notice the small boxes on the far right when I created that. The small box on the far right is an option box. So if I wanted to, I can click on the option box, and I could change things like the width, the height, the depth, the divisions, the axis it's created in, and so on. Okay? So some things, lots of things inside Maya, you'll see do have an option box attached to them. And some of them will actually have like the dot, 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 which also means like an option box, but it's a bigger option box. All right, so we have this cube. If we click on it and hit F, we'll frame it, and then we'll zoom in right on it. So that way we can see it. When you're in Maya, your best bet is to keep your left hand near the left side Control-Alt keys and your right hand on the mouse, or if you're left-handed, vice versa. Okay? But your right hand on the other Control-Alt. So we want to, first of all, this is in wireframe. It's kind of hard to see, so we're going to hit the number 5. You'll see that on your hotkey menu, on your hotkey sheet, that it says Viewport. There's a 4, a 5, a 6, and a 7, and an 8. So those are different ways that we can preview this thing. So if we hit 4, that'll take us into wireframe. 5 takes us back into shaded. Some of the other things we're not going to be able to see yet. Okay? And one of the things with 2014 is that it shows you pressed 4 to display the wireframe. Or you press 5, you can play shaded mode. Okay? So if I hit 6 or 7, those aren't going to really show anything right now. All right? So that's just our modes. If we wanted to see, if you hit 8 again to get out of that. A couple people hit 8. Just hit the number 8 again, and then hit W to get back to the Move tool. All right. If we want to see the back side of this cube, we're going to hold down the Alt key, and we're going to use the left mouse button to click and drag around it. So you hold Alt, and we use the left mouse to do what's called tumbling. Okay? We're rotating our camera around this object so that we can see the other pieces of it. It may seem silly, but being able to use these first 3 hotkeys is going to change the entire way you use Maya. So Alt, left mouse button, we're spinning around. Okay? Alt, middle mouse button, we're moving our stuff. Okay, we're not actually moving it, we're just changing where the camera is looking. Okay? And then Alt, right mouse button, left and right, is going to zoom us in and out. Okay? When you zoom in and out, don't use up and down. Use left and right as you drag, because you use the drag a bit quicker. Now, when we did our preferences, one of the things we turned off was the mouse scroll wheel zooming. Okay? I'm going to turn it on in mine. Don't turn it on in yours, just so you can see what it does. Okay? As I use my scroll wheel and I just start clicking, it just jumps right in. So sometimes you want some precision. So if I'm trying to get right into this corner, you see how it's kind of like jumping through the thing and getting in there. So I don't want that to happen. So that's why we turn it off. Okay? Some people will get stuck on there, and I've seen people sit for 15 minutes using the scroll wheel, trying to bounce back in and out to do that. So if we use Alt right mouse button, you can see the fine amount of movement we have just to kind of get right in there. Okay? So again, Alt left mouse button, we're tumbling around. Alt middle mouse button, hold on. Set your phones to vibrate. There we go. Sorry. Alt left mouse button is to tumble. Alt middle mouse button is to do what's called panning. And Alt right mouse button is our zooming tool. Okay? So take a couple minutes and just work on just rotating around, moving, panning. Okay, so now our next couple hotkeys that we're going to play with are our move, selection, rotate, and scale tools. Okay, select tool is just Q. Okay, so our left hand is on the bottom left of our keyboard, so it's very quick to just kind of go up there to the Q. The easier it is for you to not have to look at the keyboard to know where these things are, the easier it's going to be for you to get to the shortcut menu.
So Q means what now? I'm sorry.
Select,
Select.
just like the letter.
There it is.
Q.
Q. Okay, so Q is selecting, so we can deselect or select. Any of the move, rotate, or scale tools can also select, but Q is just like there's nothing showing, just select things. All right, so we go to W, that's our move tool. And you'll see with our move tool that we have a red, green, and a blue arrow. Okay, the red is the X, the green is the Y, and the Z is the blue. Did you hit W?
Yeah.
No, you
Do
didn't.
I gotta click on it?
You had to click on it, yes. Sorry.
All right, there we go.
Yep. If you don't have anything selected, you won't see that manipulator. You have to have something selected. You'll also see a little yellow box in the middle. That little yellow box is our camera is facing the cube like this. That little yellow box says if I want to click on that, I can move it parallel or perpendicular to the camera. Okay? You typically, for the move tool, never use that little yellow box. All right? So always try to click on just the arrows to move something around. Okay? So now we have Alt, left mouse button to tumble, middle mouse button to pan, right mouse button to zoom in and out, and then we have Q for selecting, W for moving, and then to go to the rotate tool, guess what the hotkey is? E. And then we have the same kind of thing. We have the red, green, blue manipulator, and in this one we have a yellow circle on the outside of our rotation sphere. Don't use that yellow circle because it's doing the same exact thing that the move tool's yellow box was doing. Okay, so always try to click right on the red, right on the blue, or right on the green to rotate your stuff around, and you'll see how it highlights. Okay, you have to get comfortable with doing this kind of stuff. Eventually you'll get there. Okay, it might take a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do it, but it just takes time. It just takes literally you getting in the software and just playing with it, trying to do things in there to get things more exact.
How'd you get that view?
It's kind of sweet.
What do you mean?
Out of your queue.
You click on it.
Oh.
Hit the letter E and then click on it.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're rotating. So now we have move is W, rotate is E, and then scale is R. Don't ask me why scale is R and rotate is E. Okay, this is the only exception to the don't click on the yellow thing rule. In scaling, if we had a human head or we had a cylinder or a sphere, we want to make sure it maintained its proportions, we want to click on that middle box and just drag it up. That way it stays the same proportions and doesn't distort. If I grab the blue, the green, and the red separately, there's not really anything kind of constraining them individually. Okay, so in scale, you can grab on any one of them, but move and rotate, don't grab the yellow outsidey thing.
So on this one, you don't want the middle one, right?
Correct. Okay. Once you've selected one of these and started moving it, that one turns yellow as the active one.
Okay.
Okay. So if I deselect and reselect it, stupid Maya. All right, if I switch tools, there we go, then it'll go back. So I switch to rotate and then go back to scale, then it'll reset all of these. The reason it's doing that is because it makes it easier. It may not seem like it, but it is. Okay. If I were to click on the blue and I scaled it down, and then I said, oh, I want to scale it down more, but for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time selecting that exact manipulator. Let's say it's like this, and I can't see that manipulator, but I still need to scale it down. Because that manipulator is highlighted, I don't even have to select it anymore. I can just use my middle mouse button out here in Nowhereville, and just middle mouse button click and drag, and you'll see how it's still using that same manipulator to scale that down or scale it up.
How are you doing that? Like,
As long as you click on any one of these directions,
They're highlighted.
it turns it yellow to highlight it, and then you just middle mouse button, click and drag. And this is going to be something that will save you hours of time, because sometimes you don't want to have to grab the manipulator because you have 7 objects around it, and when you click on it, it grabs something else. You click on it and grab something else. Okay. So for a couple minutes, just play with these tools. I'm going to be around a modeling assignment. There you go. Model a Lego.
feel the power of the brick.
That's what you've accomplished today, is you've created a Lego.
Do we save
So
this?
you don't need to save it. I'm going to create a Lego now, and you're going to see how I would create a Lego.
Yeah, you're gonna see the right way to do
Yes.
it now.
First of all, be OCD, be a little bit compulsive about keeping things nice and neat, okay? On a lot of yours, you had something that was rotated crazy and scaled at some crazy direction like that, and then you were trying to line up cylinders to something like that, and that just doesn't work, okay?
Keep it flat.
Keep it flat. Okay, so this guy here,
Later.
keep it in the proportions of the Lego. So let's say I'm doing something like that. And then creating a cylinder, which is what we had. Now again, I don't want to grab the red and the blue because then that gives me an oval. Okay, I want to grab them both, scale them both down to the appropriate size, go to the move tool and scoot it up, and then I'm going to shove it over into that side. Notice how I'm also moving and rotating my camera around.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't do everything from one view. You have to be interactive with the whole scene.
Yeah,
It's taking a minute.
It's going to.
2D, 3D hybrid.
No, it's just a
Okay,
3D.
Which one's the most though?
Yeah, it's 3D.
Okay,
It-
so
I
let's
kept clicking
pretend that
M
that's
and
it.
getting pissed off, and the S because it wasn't scaling.
So I'm duplicating and I'm scooting this one over. Notice how I grabbed just the arrow. I didn't grab the center of it. If I am here and I duplicate this and scoot this over, it kind of looks like it's in the right spot, but as I spin, all right, I'm just too good. As I move this thing around, it kind of looks like it's in the right spot, but it's not really in the right spot. Okay, it's much easier if we just use the arrows to keep this thing aligned. So now I'm going to duplicate these two and scoot it, and then I'm going to cheat.
Maybe.
Shift D.
Shift D?
Shift D is a step and repeat. I think it's on your sheet. Maybe. All right, so Shift D is a step and repeat, so it allows me to do that. Okay? So now very quickly I've created a very low resolution Lego. Okay? And I call it a low resolution Lego
It's no shiny.
because,
There's
well, it's not that there's no shiny and there's no light, but there's no smoothness to it.
no light. Right.
If you look at a real Lego, there should be, on each one of these corners, there should be the tiniest little break of that, right? Whether it's just kind of like a flat cut or whatever. Even on these things, there should be some sort of smoothness.
Bevel.
Yep. Underneath, there should be the dip. There should be like little areas where the Lego pieces can connect
Cut out
together.
The hole.
Right. So we need to figure out, when we're doing a model, how much detail do we actually need? Okay? If my Lego piece is there in my scene and that's as big as it's going to be, that's fine. It works. Okay? But if I'm going to be up close to it like this
And rotating.
and rotating it, I need to be able to show all
Depending
those
on what view and
facets.
how big it is,
Exactly.
as to how much detail is going to be.
Also, it's not only that, you know, you may say, let's just go crazy and just model this thing perfectly. If this was a real Lego sculpture and we had 5,000 of these things going, we would need to have something that works efficiently. And what I mean by that is I'm going to take this and I'm going to show my outliner just so you can see what's going on. And I'm going to delete these other things that popped up at some point. Here's my Lego pieces. I'm going to grab them and I'm going to group them just so everything is grouped successfully. All right, and then I'm going to duplicate this and scoot this on top of the other one.
How do you group?
Control G. You don't need to worry about the grouping part though right now. And then I'm going to hit Shift D a few times until I get a nice little stack of Legos. Okay. Now realistically, I don't see the little cylinders for all those other pieces.
But they're
I
there.
wouldn't see the underside. They're there. Maya's calculating them. When we hit the render button, our rendering is going to go through and it's going to try to calculate the shadows for all those cylinders, the coloring for all those cylinders, if we have any bounce light, the bounce light for all those cylinders. So we really need to, as we start to work on things, figure out what's the most optimal way we could create this surface for what we're using it for. All right. So everyone got an A+ on today's assignment of just playing around with this stuff. It's not an actual grade, but you can
Can I ask
take
you
that home.
something?
Yes, sir.
How do you color one of these things?
How do we color one? That's a great question. If we grabbed all of our pieces, and you can right-click on it, and that's the easiest way to do it. You hold down the right mouse button. This brings up what's called a marking menu. And like I've said before, this can be customized too. I can make my own marking menus. I go down to the bottom where it says Assign Favorite Material, and I'm just going to assign a blend to it. Okay. Once I right-click, Assign Favorite Material Blend, it pops open this thing. This is the attribute editor. This is where we can give it a color. I simply click on the color swatch and pick a color, and there it is. So now I have a red Lego.
How'd you get that?
Start back from the beginning again.
Okay.
Grab
Let's
all the
highlight our
Legos.
objects. We're going to right-click and hold. Whenever I say right-click, typically it's a right-click and a hold. It's never just right-clicking. I'm going to go down to the bottom where it says Assign Favorite Material, and I'm going to assign a blend. Good so far? Okay. And that's it. So now we just click on the color swatch and pick a color for the color. Okay, we could also adjust things like transparency. If we spent $1 million on our Legos and they're transparent Legos and they're super awesome, then we can have transparency to it. And now, if we did have transparency, that Lego sculpture that we built, that needs to have all those pieces in there, even if we don't see them, because we will see them because they're transparent.
Right.
Okay?
That makes sense.
There's other stuff too, like if you looked at this table, if you look at your keyboard with the lights on because it's hard to see, you'll see that there's a tiny grain pattern that happens to it. It's a tiny bit of a bump. That's just a figment or a artifact from the creation process. So there's also stuff inside here like bump map we can add. There's translucence that we can do. There's specularity, reflection, a whole bunch of stuff, okay? We're going to get into this stuff, but I've already probably made your brains eggs already today. Right.
Well, it gives us a little something.
Okay. It'll give you some coloring. You can play with the coloring, and that should be good enough for today. Okay. So this is where we're going to stop it for today. I wanted to get you into Maya, get you a little bit comfortable with the stuff. So we're going to close down Maya. We don't need to save it. We're just going to close it down.
Don't save.
Okay. If you wanted to save it, you could, but you don't need to. We're going to go to our documents. And we've already backed up our preferences. We've already copied the Maya 2014 preferences into our folder. But I want to just make sure that they're still there, because some people may have moved them. Okay? So we're opening up our folder with our name on it. We're opening up our documents in Maya. And we're just going to make sure that we've copied our preferences from one area, from the Maya area, and pasted them into our area.
Just make sure we have the 2014.
Yes, make sure you have that 2014 folder. And you may get this, do you want to do this for all your whatevers? Just hit yes. Okay? Now, if this is something that we want to make sure that we have every time we come in, then you want to make sure you back up this folder. Okay, right now it's relatively small, 278 kilobytes. It could fit on a zip disk or a floppy disk if you needed to. So if
To
you,
the server from here?
yes you can. Over here in my favorites I have them. You may have them down here below under computer, it'll say student. I think it's your Z drive. Okay, so you can click on student. The username is MACA. The password is DIFF.
Okay, well, when you click on student, it gives you all the click downs?
All the names? Yes. I'm going to give mine in here. Sarcona, Monday, Wednesday, 2, 5. Okay, so you can copy them in here. Again, this isn't a secure area. Anyone can go through and delete stuff on student. Okay? After this week, try to have that external drive because we're going to start working on stuff that's going to be part of your first assignment, and you want to make sure you have it backed up on these computers, even on the server, even on your home computer and your grandma's computer, just in case. Okay? Several spots is going to be ideal to make sure everything is happy. All right? So once you have that thing backed up, if you want to back it up today, then you can. Close your windows down, go to start, go to shut down your computer.
Just shut down.
Yep, turn off your monitors, push in your chairs, and that's it.